welcome back to Take a Mulligan podcast. I'm here with Brian today, and it is so cool to co-host together. And we are the podcast that talks about taking that second chance, taking a mulligan, where it's giving yourself another try at something. And today we're going to talk about a deep subject, right, Brian? We figure, why don't we just talk about what's in the news? Everybody's talking about it. So let's just talk about the war.
Yeah, there's a lot going on since we were last chatting together. So a lot's been happening across our country and the world, with, I guess, the most recent thing being the I guess whatever you want to call it in Iran, right? Some are calling it war, some are just calling it a military operation. I don't know if I've heard a bunch of different people call it war, but I've also heard a lot of people not call it a war. I don't know what quantifies a war. That's a good question. Is this considered a war, or is this considered an operation? I mean, there's plenty of military operations that aren't war. So
it seems pretty one-sided.
It seems like the general media. Yeah, the general media, I think, just wants to keep calling it war because it sounds worse, and they don't like the guy in charge. So easier to do it that way. But I don't really know. I don't know how it's qualified or quantified as far as what's going on. But
that's a good question.
Thought it'd be a neat idea just to jump in and see, discuss what's happening and some of the history there and stuff. So
yeah, I wonder how we do define war, because again, it's history's in the hands of the what do they call it? History's in the hands of the winner or whatever, the victor. History's in the hands of the victor, right? So no matter how it is, you're going to paint it your way once you share the history. So yeah, we might call this a skirmish in the future. We might turn around and call it a war. I don't know. It seems like we're not getting a lot of fighting back.
Even Desert Storm, wasn't that Operation Desert Storm? It was never a war. It was never called a war. It was always called Operation Desert Storm. So, and that lasted how long? What, like 4 or 5 months or something?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Actually, I pulled up some dates.
It wasn't that long. It wasn't super long, I remember. But it definitely, it definitely didn't last years and years. So I don't know if the length of time dictates what a war is. How many people are involved dictates what a war is.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing to look at, too.
Actually, did it go from Operation Desert Storm to the Gulf War?
Good question. Let me see. I was just looking up. Operation Desert Storm lasted 43 days, beginning with an aerial bombardment on January 17th, 91, including with a ceasefire on February 28th, 91.
So then what do we call the Gulf War?
Kuwait ending. It ended the Gulf War. Ended the Gulf War conflict is what it said.
Well, I guess.
So I guess the Gulf War was different. Operation Desert Storm.
Because technically the Gulf War was when Iraq then went into
Kuwait.
Kuwait.
Yeah, wasn't that Kuwait?
Iraq,
Kuwait. Yeah.
To go back, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that was wild. I still remember that.
So that takes us back to the more recent thing going on. So the Iranian thing.
Yeah. So
what are your thoughts on it? I mean, were you kind of surprised by it? Were you like, hey, we should have been doing this years ago? I'm kind of behind the fact that we need to destroy this regime that's been terrible for so many years. Did you have many thoughts at all on it?
Iran's always been, ever since we were little kids, we remember hearing about Iran, because it's literally been a terrible regime. It's not the people of the country, it's the leadership of that country. And so they've always been causing troubles.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we've tolerated it. And yet, obviously you're always trying to think of, how much do you mess with other countries until they're a threat, or are they causing potential harm to other nations around them? Like, nobody paid attention to Germany. Next thing you know, they're trying to take over the world, right? So at what point do you
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's hard because, again, you can't talk about anything political or worldly or anything, because there's just a hatred towards, I'll just say it out loud, the hatred towards Trump is just, it's so evident in so many things. And whether he's making mistakes along the way or not is almost irrelevant, because there's just so much hatred towards him that no matter what he does, they're going to hate it. And again, the fact that he stood up at this point to make a decision to do something, when I've heard every other president from Clinton on, Clinton on. So everybody in the modern age all said the same talking point. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We cannot let Iran, be what they are. And they all said it. And now, because the one guy that so many people like to hate did it, it's like, "Oh, now we can't do it. Why'd you do it? We
Yeah,
shouldn't have done it. We should
yeah.
be out of there." And it's
Yeah, it's
just
a
amazing. So
shit.
it's so hard to even have a conversation with the general public because if they hate Trump, it's like even if they agree that we should get rid of Iran or should, do something because they are a major threat, it doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame we've come to that where we can't even just have political discussions or not even like
Yeah, or agreement
I
on
mean,
certain things.
is this really a I mean, I know everything's political anymore, but let's just talk about can we just talk about the war and talk about Iran and talk about the cultures and not have it
Yeah.
be politics, right? I mean, can't we just talk about that stuff? Like, like you said, for generations now, we're talking generations, we're talking multiple
Yeah.
presidents have said they're a threat to us. We cannot let them have nuclear capabilities. I actually was researching a little bit. Well, two things came up. One was how close were they really to perfecting uranium? Because I don't
Mhm.
know much about that stuff. You just say, "Oh, they're close, they're close."
Yeah.
And so, from what I'm reading here, again, there's a bunch of different sources that are listed, but they were saying they have reached 60% capability, and you're like, okay, well, that's still far away from 90%. But they say no. Once you've reached that 60%, getting to that 90 is not a hard step. And so they've
Yeah.
been stockpiling 60 rate or uranium at 60% for a long time, enough that if they take that next step, they could have potentially this one article saying 7 to 9 or no 5 to 10 nuclear devices.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, how quickly could they develop it? They say, man, if they really stepped into their game and really went crazy, like perfecting, trying to get to that next step, which again, other people have done there, are obviously there. They could do that in a week. So I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So that's
Yeah,
a
it's scary.
real, this isn't like, okay, it could happen 3 or 5
Yeah.
years from now. They're just getting close. It's like, no, they were that close that if we didn't step in, the next missile launched out of there could have been a nuclear missile against any country within their
Yeah.
reach. And now we're finding out that they had a lot farther reach than we thought they did, right? Because
Well, that's it. I think that was the other thing that was fascinating too, because again, it was like, a lot of people, again, it's hard to discern this stuff because every
it is.
media that's anti-Trump, which there's so many, is like, oh yeah, he's lying. It's just like the weapons of mass destruction. There was none. There was really no threat. And now, of course, I think it's always fascinating when you see all the stats come out later on and all the facts come out after, and it
Yeah.
proves his point. And that's what I just saw recently that he had intel and he had the intel that they could get long range missiles. And not only do they have, the uranium to make it, but to have the missile to take it all the way.
Yeah.
And apparently they had enough that they could have easily gone after parts of Europe, I think. So,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
didn't think they had him to go that far.
Yeah.
So
So here,
if he was true, then it's like, well, he had the intel, and that's crazy to me too. I think it's so you can't divide the hatred out of any of the facts anymore. That's what's so
yeah, yeah,
hard
yeah,
and
and
so
it's on both
frustrating because
sides.
you're just
There's
like
such a hatred.
it is, but I
Yeah,
think again, if when you're looking at like, okay, presidents of our country have always had extremely, extremely good intel, right? I mean, we have
yeah,
a great nation,
they
we
should
have a
have the
great
best.
military, so we have great intel. So whether you
Yeah,
like the president or not, you can't dispute the fact that the intel they're getting is going to be top notch. So he's not going to share with us. No president's going to share with us every single detail of intelligence that he received to make his decisions. So why would you expect him to do the same thing? And if it's not like he's just like, let's just go bomb Iran. I just feel like it. And
yeah,
that's not at all what it was. I mean, they obviously had the intelligence to know that this was a threat and a threat enough
yeah,
to know that like, okay, if they want to take us out because they always chant death to America, then that's a threat to us. If they're saying that they're going to hit another country, then we need to help them out. I mean, that's essentially what it seems like to me. It doesn't seem that difficult to understand that part of it. Is they had enough intel, they knew it was a big threat. Iran has always been a threat for over almost 40 years. Every president said the same thing. And now we finally take care of it and it's like, "Oh, why'd you do it?"
yeah, yeah. It is pretty ironic. And yeah, again, you've been in leadership roles too, and when you compare it to something like leading a nation, um,
Yeah.
I've made decisions, among other leaders and say, okay, we got to do this, right? And it could be, I mean, in the scheme of things, it's minor decisions, but you have a lot of people who may not agree with that decision, but a lot of those people, as much information as you can give people, they're still not getting all the information because they haven't walked in your steps for the past 6
Yeah.
months or 1 year or 5 years or 10 years, however long it is, right? And so you're making a decision, whether it's for business or for a team or whatever, based on a lot of years of experience that brought you to that point to say, okay, now based on
Mhm.
this, I'm going to make this decision. And no matter what decision you make, people are going to be upset about it, right? I
Yeah.
cannot imagine the weight that any president
No.
must have to say, oh my goodness, yes, if we act on this, like obviously we're acting as a nation now towards this, right? But if we don't, what are the ramifications? Because
Yeah.
what would have happened? Now we know they could have. Okay, so they could have knocked out London or something like that if they could have reached parts of Europe potentially, right? So, man, what would
Yeah.
I mean? That would have devastated millions and millions of peoples and a land for generations to come that would just be gone, right? Because
Yeah.
you now have a
And
nuclear
again, I mean,
fallout.
and we know they always wanted to get rid of Israel, so, I mean, that was probably their primary target. If not, I'm not sure if we
Yep.
were 2nd on the list or 1st on the list because they definitely seemed like they hate America, so I'm not sure which one would be the first target, but, even with, the president making the call, again, whatever president it is for all the wars of all time, it's the
Yeah.
same thing, he's banking on the intelligence and the expertise of the people around him, the generals and the military and, director of war and, all these different things, all these different heads that he has to listen to. And obviously they're getting the intelligence to share with him. He makes the final call, but it's not like he just went out there and searched for all this information himself. He has a team that's doing that for him. And, I can't imagine the weight of that decision that you have to make for something like that.
Can't either. And how many presidents had to make decisions and didn't make some? I mean, you go back to Pearl Harbor,
Yeah.
right? We had
Yeah.
intelligence. We know that. We've
Right.
we've seen documentaries, and they made a choice. Okay, maybe it's not going to happen, or maybe their intelligence is not that good. So let's wait, right? And devastating effects. And of course, conspiracies
Yeah.
would say, they knew it. They had to let it happen.
Yeah, I
But
know there's all those kind of things, right?
yeah, yeah. But Roosevelt had to make a decision, and now it's history, no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
So
And the other
yeah,
thing too is again, none of this stuff is like, "Oh, we just decided yesterday we're gonna do this." Like this, planning, so much strategic planning goes into that, into every I mean, even the Venezuela thing, I mean, that it wasn't like they just did it the night before. I mean, they planned that out. I mean, if, you watch it doesn't take much. You watch any military movie or, anything that has to do with military and you see them practicing going in to either get the guy or rescue somebody, and they have the whole thing laid out. So it's not like they can't just do this willy nilly. They have to have it all planned out, which takes time to do it. And I think what's amazing is just knowing our military is that good that they can go in and be so precise with how they handle these things. And that's all from
yeah.
the air. I mean, that's not
With
anybody on the ground yet.
Yeah, without a
And
loss, without losses. Like, I mean,
yeah,
where we're and again, any
I mean,
loss is a
we
loss,
definitely had
but you're
some,
you're
but
you have some losses now. But I'm talking about like when we took out the Venezuelan.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that was like
specifically.
precision in and out, and you're done. And even last year when he went after, the Iran bases last year, right? When he
Yeah,
took them out, like, overnight, like, last summer, and it was the same thing. It was, like, in and out, nobody got hurt, they were done, they did their job, and they were out. And that's what's scary too, is if they took out a lot of their technology then of building,
and they kept
how
going.
quickly they got back to I mean, you're talking, like, what, 9 months later, you're already back up building bombs and missiles again? So they obviously have some huge backers with a lot of money to help them do that.
Wow, again, how much money we've given them over the years. Literally,
Yeah,
we've given them cash. We've given them
even more
cash.
recently.
Yeah, yeah, and you're like, "Are you kidding me? We're giving them cash." Yeah, I think we were chatting
Yeah.
the other night about this, saying, yeah, we literally probably bought the bombs and the missiles that are being fired at our own men
Yeah.
and
Well, even look
right
at all we
now.
left back in Afghanistan. I mean, that was
Oh, yeah.
millions of dollars
Yeah.
in technology and weapons that we left behind that somebody else is using now.
Yep. Yeah. So I was looking at, I don't know, just posted in the news. I don't know when it came out. It just came out today. Yeah, about Iran sparks international outrage when they turn 12 years old, are now being drafted into their military.
Wow.
Yep. So officially, Iranian government announced Thursday that it officially lowered the minimum age for military support roles to just 12 years old.
Well, I
And
think
then went
the,
on to,
I think oh, go ahead.
I say, then went on to say that, I'm looking at which war was, that they used children 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, the regime famously deployed a paramilitary force of young volunteers ages 12 to 17
Oh my
to
gosh.
literally be a human wave that would walk through the minefields to blow up the mines so that the troops could then go through.
Wow. So use them as human
This
shields,
is the I mean,
basically.
this is the nation that we're,
Yeah.
eh, we don't realize how, barbaric some of these nations just are,
Uh-huh.
we really don't.
Yeah.
We are so sheltered in America, it's just beyond
Mhm.
belief, and,
Well, and it's hard too because there's our nation's very divided, right? And it's just so hard to see people protesting against an operation to take out a government like that that's oppressing people by saying our government is oppressing people. It's just like you can't even wrap your head around the thought process of that. So I'm sure you saw the videos too. It's like, you had groups of people in America, Americans, protesting against the war while the Iranian people were dancing in the streets, thankful that they've been liberated. I thought it used to be a good thing when you liberated a nation. I mean, look over time. I mean, we've always seen that. Every time you see a nation liberated that was under a terrible regime, it was like, yay, good thing that they
they're
can now have a
celebrating. Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's just like the stark contrast is pretty crazy. I mean, I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
like when I was a kid. I mean, 1979. I remember that. I remember that we used to pray every night, I think, that the soldiers would be, or that the prisoners would be released from Iran.
From Iran. Yeah, oh, yeah,
From
yeah,
Iran, yeah. And that was during Carter's administration. I remember that specifically. And then what happened? Reagan came in and he got them all out.
yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was no big deal. It's funny that I remember that. I think because I remember when we used to pray at night with mom at bedtime, that was one of the things we prayed for, was for the
For the
hostages
hostages
to
to
be
be released.
released.
And it's
And they
funny,
were
we
there for a
we
long time.
we grew up, mom and dad were pretty staunch Democrats, so it was funny
Yeah.
that you're here, they're,
It was a different party
their
back then.
opposite party. Yeah, it was, but the
Yeah.
opposite party came into power and it all cleared up, from mom and dad's perspective.
But I was going back and looking at a little bit of the details on when everything did change. So it was 1979. It was the Iranian Revolution, which they overthrew the monarchy at that time, and then Khomeini came into power, and it basically became an Islamic nation based off of Islamic rules, beliefs, and it wasn't really any kind of dictatorship, or, any kind of a democratic type of state anymore. It was just basically ruled by the Islamic laws, the religious laws.
And
Talk
the
about, trying to
Sharia
separate,
laws then too.
yeah, the Sharia laws,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they treat women terribly. They didn't have any
yeah,
rights. I mean, there's so many different facts that if people, instead of just getting upset that we're doing it, would at least go and find some of those facts, it really
yeah,
be amazing. Because even the fact of, the more recent one, we know that their own government, basically mowed down like 30,000 people that were protesting against the government only
yeah,
within the last several months.
yeah.
And everybody that gets so upset about the other little things that are happening around here, they never said a word about, worried about all those people that
30,000
got
that were
killed over
shot.
there,
Yeah.
and
And just
how,
recent,
like,
you're
that's a
talking not like 2 years ago or
yeah,
5
like a
years
couple
ago
of months
or
ago.
the
Yeah, it
previous
was only a few
regime. This
months
is
ago.
just a few months ago that they're killing all these kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was that one. Yeah, they're going back to the one back in 1980s where what was it called? They said it's called between 36,000 and 45,000 students were killed during that conflict because of again,
The other
putting
one was
kids
just,
in the
it was
kids in.
very recent. I mean, within the last couple of months, I think they were killing like up to 30,000 people.
Yeah, so it also says the human rights in Iran reports that security forces killed more than 200 children during a wave of protests in early 2026.
Early 2026. Nobody said a word about that.
No, no,
Like, you don't hear
200 kids.
anybody talking about how terrible that was. It's just interesting how they kind of cherry pick what they're going to get upset about in the media. And then things that really do matter, that's like, oh, we're not going to worry about that. And now we just freed
Yeah,
a nation that was doing that, but we're still, bad for doing that.
yeah. It's
Like twisted
strange,
philosophies.
strange, strange. Yeah, but so I was looking
Well,
at
the other thing is,
God,
I was gonna say the other thing is too is how many people that they, or how many groups that they're supporting. Like all these other terrorist groups. I mean, they're basically the hub of terrorism in the entire world. So you got these, Hezbollah groups and all these other groups, the Houthis and all these other groups that are terrorist organizations that have gone in. I mean, look at what went on with Israel, a couple of years ago when they went in there. All those people were funded and backed by Iran. So it's not just, what they did in their own nation, it's how they're affecting and what they're doing to other nations doing the same thing.
Yeah. And we're not seeing it in the news, but we are seeing terrorist attacks on our nation like never before.
Yeah.
I mean, they're happening all across the
Yeah.
country.
Yep. And they're quiet about it. They're very quiet about it, but you can find them
Yeah.
and they're there and yeah, I think since this whole interaction, I think there's been at least like 5 or 6 that I've been aware of that were either shootings or something else that were definitely tagged now as terrorist activities from, Islamic
Yeah.
regimes.
Yeah, like this one, I don't know if you heard about this one. I came across one of the news feeds I watch, and a pastor in Arizona, 76-year-old pastor from New River Bible Chapel, was found in his home, literally crucified.
My god.
Yeah, this is in Arizona. Okay.
This was recent?
Yep. Yep. And again, they're tying these are terrorist attacks that are happening against Christians in our nation. Yeah. One time there was something about up in Michigan or something just happened recently too, where some shooting and stuff
Yeah.
again was another Islamic kind of attack, right?
Yep.
That was
Well,
another
even
one.
the one in New York. The one in New
Yeah.
York that just happened where they threw the bomb that luckily didn't go off, but they were very I mean, that was just in our backyard. It was right here in Bucks County. I mean, they were very bold to say what they were doing and what they were doing it for. And that I think that's the thing that, like, so many people don't understand is where the Sharia law fits in and where the Islamic radical religion fits into the Muslim world, because there's
Yeah.
lots of Muslims that are not radical Islamists.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
problem is that all the radical Islamists, I mean, it's written in their beliefs that every nation should be Islam. If not, they need to be wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
You can't really
Yeah.
argue with that one, and
No.
I
No.
always
It's
find
their
it
own writings.
fascinating when and I always find
Yeah.
it fascinating when people wanna talk about, religions and different things, and it's like, there is no other religion on earth where violence is to be done in order to turn people to their religion. Like, there's there's no other one that I'm aware of unless it's some other kind of tribal thing somewhere, that's not really talked about in a small scale and a very small percentage, but, anything. I mean, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, none of those are forcing people by death to
Yeah.
join their religion or their faith.
And it's filled with violence because not only is it join us or
Yeah.
die, but it's die for the cause. Like if you
Yeah.
die, you're going to get all kinds of rewards because you were a martyr for the cause.
Yeah. And it's a
So
shame,
yeah, they
I wish people would understand that more because it paints a whole different perspective on why this is so dangerous and why, this needs to be stopped in nations and why we need to be concerned in America about it because if, they're flooding in, by the millions in some cases, how many that have come to our country are radical Islam versus just,
yeah, yeah,
Muslim by heritage and have no concern over doing anything of overthrowing our government or any
yeah,
people like that.
yeah. People who have deep hatred for our country yet have come here, which is just
Yeah.
mind-boggling. Yeah, it's
And,
like
the Sharia law thing too, like, I wish people would put that out there a little bit more as to exactly what that is and what it does because again, I mean, it's terrible things about against women and how they treat
yeah,
them and what they're not allowed to do. And that's why it was so nice to see how liberated they looked, mostly the women when they were dancing in the streets, not only in Iran, but in our country. I mean, I heard somebody say when they were having some kind of rally or something after it in California. And somebody had said that is the largest Iranian population in the whole country is in California. I don't know if that's exactly true or not, but that's what they were reporting it, and I had never known that before. That sounds like kind of a crazy stat to have that many people in California that way.
and so when were they recently celebrating? Not just you heard about this, all this, just
When
with
he
all
when
this
he
stuff that's going
first
on?
had bombed and killed Khomeini.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like the
Wow.
next day. They were like, yeah, there was a lot of videos out there that I saw, and again, can't find them on every outlet because I don't think
No,
they wanna
you
show them. But
yeah, we're
there
very
was a lot of
sheltered.
them that I saw, and it was pretty obvious. They were very, very happy and dancing in the streets and, even I've seen some Iranians, interviewed since then on different, outlets and stuff and saying how Americans don't understand how important this was and why this
Yeah,
was so important.
yeah. And again, we live very sheltered lives, and
Yeah.
we have pretty opinionated opinions
Yeah.
on what we think is right and wrong, with very limited understanding of what's really going on.
Yeah.
And I think
And it's a
myself,
shame.
like I just don't
Yeah.
I don't read enough. Like I try to keep up to date
Yeah.
on stuff, but there's
It's
just
hard to
way
keep
too
up. Yeah.
much. Yeah.
And I think too, for so many, it's an easy solution, right? Instead of having people that are talking heads talking about stuff they don't really understand or have perspective on, why don't we just interview the people that are dealing with it?
Yeah.
The whole migration thing, interview immigrants who came here the right way, because I guarantee you they're going to tell you that they're upset with how things went over the last 4 years. And interview Iranians who lived there, who escaped there. And it wouldn't take long for them to tell their stories. And then we were like, have a much better understanding. Instead, we kind of form our own opinions, like you said, based on being so naive living in our country and taking things for granted instead of really understanding what do these people really deal with? What have they lived through? And let's hear it from them instead.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about like this whole war, or whatever we're calling it, because it just doesn't involve us, it involves the nation of Israel. But these guys really have been at war for what, 3,000 years, something like that. I don't know, 4,000 years. I
Yeah,
forget.
because it was
See,
Persia
even back to
before.
Abraham. Oh, that's
Yeah.
a long time ago. Yeah. So
And it was Persia originally. Iran was Persia. And I think I heard somewhere like in maybe the early 70s or something before that revolution is when it became known as Iran. But I mean, you think back again, go to biblical times because there's so much history there in that region. And I mean, the
yeah,
Persian army it was a huge,
yeah.
huge military force way
Well, it
back.
took over the Babylonian army. So I mean, they
Yeah, yeah,
destroyed
I
that
know
a
the
lot, right?
Babylonians were pretty nasty. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking back on some of the scripture referring back to the Babylonian war when Babylon came in and took over Israel,
yeah,
and just the horrors, and,
yeah,
just take the time to talk about that, but just the horrors of war of, I mean, the Book of Lamentations talks about that in the Old
yeah,
Testament, and just the horrors of war parents losing their children, and cannibalism, and dying of thirst, and all that kind of stuff, just because that's just part of war. Like, it's just
yeah,
the war's just dark. It's just dark. There's no way around it. And I think, I shifted here like to biblical perspective, but
yeah,
the interesting thing is God knew like war had to be a part of things, in the sense of overcoming chaos in the world. Because war causes is the ultimate chaos, right? Which
yeah,
is just because of, just a sinful world that we live in, right? And out of that comes the ultimate hatred towards one another, which causes wars. And but in order to stop that, in order to prevent that, in order to bring justice, somebody has to enter into that war, into those battles of oppressed people by another nation, in order to bring an end to it, because otherwise it will not end, right? So you have the
yeah,
Babylonian Empire. Unless the Persian Empire came in and destroyed them, it would have not ended, right? And then you have, the Persian Empire
yeah,
lasted for how long? And even go back to, the end of the Roman Empire, right? Until somebody could enter in and destroy something that is evil, it would not end. And I think that's what seems so foreign to us as people in America, because we're not we get upset when our feelings get hurt, like, you hurt my feelings, and like, and the whole concept of entering into a conflict in order to bring resolution is just not something we're good at anymore, just even on a
N-
personal level, right? And so now you take something that is so far above that, in entering into war in order to prevent one group of people from oppressing at least their own people, but even beyond that, right? And so, as much as we hate it, and we hate war, and we hate suffering, unless somebody does it, it's not going to end, right? I mean,
yeah,
Hitler would not have. He would not have. He would not have stopped if someone did not enter in and stop him. And
yeah,
so, I mean, America had to enter into the gruesomeness of war, the evils of war, where even civilians get caught in the mix. Because unless that had happened, unless somebody's willing to do that, it would have kept going. and we kept going, right? And I know most of us have seen little movies of what if Germany had won the war, what the world would look like today, right? When they
Right,
fast
yeah,
forward, and
yeah.
yeah, there's Netflix series, all that kind of stuff out there now, but it's hard for us to even conceptualize that because it's just so foreign to us. But I think that's the interesting thing when it comes to war is we have to enter it, and um, going back to like the nation of Israel, I think the amazing thing was God could have ended it all. Like he could have just put his hand down and say, okay, that's it. We're done. I'll wipe out the nations like he did Egypt. Right.
Yeah.
But instead, God chose to take his people and say, I want you to be a part of this because unless you understand how evil can rise and be a part of overcoming evil when it rises up, I believe it was part of the discouragement to say, don't let yourselves ever get to that point that somebody else would have to come and take you down because I'm
Yeah.
inviting you into this process of being a nation that would put an end to barbaric behavior that's going on out there. And that's what the nation of Israel did. Now, obviously, they messed up in areas too and all that kind of stuff, but that's what God called them to do. And I'm not trying to compare America to Israel or anything like that, but I think the role that America has played over the years, over the generations, has been very similar to listen, somebody's got to step in and stop this. And if we don't, who's gonna, right?
Yeah. And I think, again, our nation has been very blessed to be able to do that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people are
Absolutely.
upset that we're always sticking our nose in where maybe we don't belong. And yeah, throughout
I,
history, there's probably a lot of that truth. But like you said, in certain situations, because we have been a strong nation, generally most of our history, if we didn't step in and help out, what would things look like sometimes?
yeah.
And I find it kind of funny too when people over the last 10 years or so, like, get upset when we do something. It's like, well, America's always stepped in somewhere.
Yeah.
If they find there's like injustice happening or something that they feel like we can help as a nation. Now, do we always help every time? No, no. Do we always make a government better? No. Sometimes we made it a lot worse by stepping in because we want to get our hand in there. There's lots of stuff in there from history, but I think there's also a lot of times where, like you said, we did a good job of trying to come in and help out somebody else who was a weaker nation. And, like you said, World War II, if we didn't get involved, if we just sat back and just watched it all happen because it wasn't on our stage until Pearl Harbor hit. But if we just sat back and watched, I mean, what would have happened? Really? It is very interesting to think about. I mean,
Oh,
look
and you had so
back
many
through the
powers.
history.
You had so many powers
Yeah.
vying for being on top, right? I mean, Russia was one of them.
Yeah.
Japan's another one, right? And then you have Germany. We all want to be in
Yeah.
control. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
it's all
I mean,
pinky in the brain.
even the fascination of our own civil war. I mean, our own nation that fought against each other in such a terrible time, and obviously for good reason to get abolish slavery. But I mean, for a nation to get to that point, and look, we survived and we got over it and we got back to where we are now today. And it's pretty fascinating. And I know a lot of people talk about, Rome and how strong. And I mean, I think they still go down as probably one of the most powerful empires ever, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Babylon, I think was probably maybe the next one, but it seems like I think most historians call Rome the, you know, best empire ever, strongest empire ever. I mean, that says a lot, especially when you think about that time period, when when Jesus was coming right in the middle of all that and that was going on. And and again, you think through history, the Ninevites and the Babylonians and the Persians. I mean, there's so many other nasty, nasty groups of people, and the Romans are right up there with it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
interesting
guess
too because I think a lot of people try to figure out, okay, what does this all mean? Again, from a biblical perspective, what does this mean? Are we helping out Israel? Should we help out? There's a lot of conflict there too, and um, again, I think it's beyond what we were talking about. But I just know there's a lot of people that are conflicted over: is Israel helping us? Are we helping them? Should we be helping them? What's Israel's stake in all this? And I just think overall, I mean, that area that part of land, that piece of the world, it is just all over the Bible and all over the Bible in end times. And we know that, a lot of stuff is going to happen geographically in that area. Now,
yeah,
whatever's happening now, I still have no idea what that means in the grand scheme of God's plan, since we don't know the time or the hour or anything else of when all these things are going to transpire. But it's just interesting to see how some of these things are playing out over there.
yeah. No, I think again, I Honestly, I don't know if I have like, other than the uranium and all that kind of stuff being weird, they were that close to nuclear capability, which is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. That should terrify all of us. So I guess that would be my opinion on the war. Like, they shouldn't have it, right? Because 'Cause they're a terrorist
Yeah,
nation.
yeah.
They wanna destroy other
Right,
people. They've said that.
right.
They're come out, it's not like they're hiding it. They come right out and say, "We wanna
Yeah,
destroy everybody who doesn't believe what we believe, so we're gonna destroy you." So, if we have nuclear capability, I mean, they could take out the entire world because they don't have that many nukes, but they could take out a big chunk of it and cause major, major
yeah,
damage. So, but I don't know what's all behind this stuff, but I think, if Israel had their own objectives because they're right next door pretty much, right?
yeah,
I think it was wise of us to, as a nation, to say, okay, wait a minute. If you're going to start playing on the board, we probably should be on the board too, because we have the same interest. We don't want to see them get this nuclear capability. So maybe we were called into the war earlier than we want to. Maybe we were leading the way, saying, you know what? We don't care what
yeah.
Israel's doing. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, again, from a lot of stuff you hear right from the mouth of the people versus
Yeah.
how the
Second
media
hand, third
spins it.
hand.
It it sounds like, I mean, we definitely did it for our purposes, not just Israel telling us, "Hey, you need to go in and do this." I think we had our own intel again that made sense for us to do this at this time and take care of it.
And some of our own purposes is not, it's not putting America first. I mean, and I'm okay with that because
Yeah,
in the long run, it
because
is putting
yeah,
America first. In the long run, if a terrorist nation takes over all of you or destroys parts of Europe or takes over the Middle East, that's not in our best interest. That's not our.
right.
So if we have a chance to stop that, the end result is yes, it's in our best interest because it'll destroy us. I mean, that's potential to destroy us, right? I mean, even just the oil and the shipment and forget the money stuff, forget that whole part of it. Just
Yeah.
the reality of oil being there and the need for it. And I think it's
Well, even
amazing
the
that the strait we're protecting, right? I forget what they call the strait. I don't
the
remember all these
Strait of
names.
Hormuz,
Yeah. I think it's amazing that we're like spending so much time and energy trying to protect something that pretty much
it
gets all
doesn't
the
affect
oil
us.
to China. It has no effect
Yeah,
on us. Um,
yeah,
and and then people say, "Well, see, that's a waste of time and energy because it's not America first." It's like, man, that's what a gesture to China to say, "Look,
yeah,
we may not agree on 99.9% of everything, but we don't want you guys to suffer because this is your main source of oil, so we want to protect it for you." Man, I
yeah.
just think that's like what a gesture to hand to it. Now, whether they accept that or not, I don't know, but I don't know. I just think with the old Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great responsibility. You know what? And we have a responsibility in the world. We just do,
Yeah,
whether we choose to or not. It's there because God has blessed us as a nation tremendously, even though we're not a nation after God, which I don't believe we are, overall. But we are blessed, and we have a powerful military, and we have powerful resources. We're the only nation. Yeah, where's I reading this at? Maybe we talked about this previously. We're the only nation that is self-sufficient.
yeah,
We are the only nation. I mean, we do trades and stuff with other nations, but we are the only nation on the planet, to my understanding, that has all the resources it possibly needs
yeah,
to
all the
be able to
natural
take care of
resources here,
itself. We
yeah,
don't need anybody else. We choose to do trade with other nations to be good friends and to make things work, but that's boggling. That's mind-boggling. We
yeah.
could be a nation that just put up big walls and just forget everybody else and be to ourselves, and we don't. And I think that's honorable, you know?
Yeah, and I think, some nations appreciate that. Other nations are like, well, we don't want America messing with us or getting in the way. And why are they sticking their nose in here? But like you said, I think it's a bigger, broader plan. I heard somebody just saying, I was listening to something just this morning, and they were saying, it's the big picture. And everybody gets so upset about this. Like you said, is this an America first kind of agenda? Well, I think the long term plan is because it's almost like you got to cut the head off the snake. If that's the snake is Iran, and you cut the head off, well, guess what? All the possible potential terrorists that are hanging around in our country, if they lose the head of their organization, they might not
I
be
don't
so much
wonder.
of a threat to us here now. But I think they were basically making the point that, like, we know that there's got to be people in our nation that are ready to go attack us here in our nation. Like, we'd be dumb if we didn't really think that. And if you cut off the organization that's supporting that, then now we can go take care of our own nation and make sure we get rid of those people as well. But if you don't take care of the source,
Yeah.
it's not going to do anything. It'll just
Well,
keep coming back. So I think
very
that is
similar.
the long term.
Okay. And very similar to the drug war. We finally
Yeah,
went to war on
yeah,
drugs.
right.
We've been talking
Instead of
about it
letting
for
them come to us.
generations.
Yeah,
We gotta go war on drugs. Somebody finally went to war on drugs and said, guess what? We gotta start taking out the people who are bringing
yeah,
it to the country. And look at the impact. Oh my goodness. I mean, you're reading
yeah.
like, I don't know about you, but
Numbers
it's
are
almost like you
down.
could read daily of drug cartels coming down, of the sex trading going on, like just
Mhm.
downfalling. It's amazing what is happening. It's a shame that most people in the country aren't hearing about all this stuff that's happening.
Yeah, and it's and what's well, what's sad is that, again, like you said, war is nasty, war is ugly,
Yes.
and is it great to just blow up a boat of people that are carrying drugs? No, but again, it's war. Like you said, a war on drugs is a major thing because guess what? These cartels that are doing this, they're not just going to sit back and not start shooting up people that are getting in their way. So that's a war in itself. So if we're
And
proactive on taking that out, right, then we're helping.
they're carrying the potential, and we know it is, of
Yeah.
literally murdering thousands of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe slow
Yeah.
deaths because its addictions over time eventually will kill them. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, and I think that I remember going back, man, Old Testament professor back in seminary, the whole thing when we started talking about war was there is nothing more darker in this world than war.
Yeah.
It's and you could look at different types of wars, but literally there war is ultimate chaos and it's hard.
And unfortunately, it's been going on since the beginning of time, and it's going to go on until the end of time, and it's going to look different in every aspect. And unfortunately, again, that's, the sin that entered the world is why that's created. And
Yeah,
until God has his time to end it all, it's going to keep happening.
yeah.
And
And
I think,
Jesus told
that's
us
that's where, yeah,
he told us it would increase as he gets closer
yeah,
and closer to his return, that
yeah,
wars would increase and you would hear more and
yep,
more. And so I don't like it.
yeah, no,
I yeah, and I don't want yeah, I don't want to be part of it. Like I don't. Like I get that.
yeah,
But you have to enter into the chaos in order to fix and help bring about. Otherwise it doesn't happen.
yeah. And that's why I think it's easy to look at that as, this is a doom and gloom kind of thing. But, if we're looking at more war and increasing wars as time moves on, but I think again that's where we have our peace, is knowing that we know how the story ends, and we know that Christ came to save the world, and
Yeah,
when he's ready, he'll take us back with him and end all of this and just have us live in perfect peace and paradise. And to have that in your head is much easier than to think doom and gloom and it's just going to be all nasty
it's
and,
all
and
over.
terrible for the rest of life. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think,
the
hey, go
hope that
ahead.
comes from Christ. Yeah,
Yeah.
share. I don't know if we should probably wrap up at this point already.
Yeah.
I was just thinking so I heard an interesting story today. So there is a what do you call it? Like sort of like a mausoleum, I guess. They're tombs up in oh my goodness, I was just there up today. Um, We drove through the Little League Baseball Hall of Fame area.
Williamsport.
Williamsport. Okay, so up in Williamsport, there is a row of tombs, like in a wall of a brick wall, because and here's the thing, they were designed with escape hatches inside. Isn't that mind-boggling? So what had happened was, I think it was a fire. Man, I lost the first part of the story, so I got to Google this, man, to find out. But so somebody had died, so they thought, and he was buried into one of these tomb things, and he woke up in there. Can you imagine that? That's like terrifying.
Wow.
So he woke up in there, was not dead, and broke his way out. And because of that, he was determined that someday, if he ever got put in the grave again, he would create this kind of vault system. So literally, it almost looks like a submarine kind of valve kind of things on it with the little handle things, like the spinning
Hmm.
wheel, like on it. And that's what's
Yeah.
on the front of the tomb. And so you could open up the door and you could open up. So he designed them so that there's a door, there's a knob on the inside. So if he ever got put in there again, he'd have to come out. And when I heard that story, I was like, oh my goodness, that's so funny when you talk about death and rising. And yeah, here we go back to Christ, that we worship a God who has no escape hatch in his tomb. He rose from the dead, man, and promises us, right, new life, that this is not it. This is the war and the destruction and the evil that are part of this world is not what's part of eternity, and we have a lot of hope to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we were to say, like, what do you take a mulligan on for a second chance on this topic? I think, there's lots of times in history I'm sure we could look back and say, oh, we shouldn't have done that, should have done this, should have done it different, should have started this earlier, should have ended it sooner, any of those things. But I think ultimately, the violence that's in the world is not going to end until Christ is returning. So, I mean, that's the biggest second chance right there, is knowing that, the violence and everything will end when Christ returns, and he's had enough and calls us home.
Yeah.
So with that, I guess we end this segment on talking about a tough topic, and hope we can
Wish
encourage
everybody
you a little
happy
bit with
Easter.
yeah, have a happy, know that there is life after death. You got to
There is hope.
know the Savior. Yeah, yeah. We know everyone can use a second chance or a do-over. So take a mulligan and try again. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Like, click, and subscribe.